Folks, it's my pleasure today to introduce to you Professor Rick Wallace. Dr. Wallace, Professor Wallace, Professor of Learning Resources, is that right? In the College of Medicine, and full professor, and assistant director for the library, Quillen, or I guess the medical library, if you will. It's the one where we have a lot of journals as well, I guess. Right. And you'll notice behind his name a very interesting list of letters. I actually had to ask about several of these, what they were. But Dr. Wallace got his undergrad degree at UT. UTK. He's an East Tennessee native. Went to UT for his undergrad. Then has 2 masters in theology or divinity. Are they both from the same?
No, different schools.
Oh, they're different schools, okay. And then a master's of management from Tusculum, a master's of public health in Epi. And Epi from here. Dr. Collins. Master's of science in library science. And that one was from UT. And then an EDD from ETSU. 2 of his degrees are from ETSU, where he's full professor, so that's good. I will tell you, that's the most, that has to be the most number of degrees I've ever seen anyone have. So that's just really interesting.
It's all about lifelong learning.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You'll see.
And lifelong teaching.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see, I think, today in this presentation, true passion for learning and for communicating best evidence and the how to get the best evidence on the ground where it's needed the most. This is what I've known Rick for 6 years now. I've known him to be passionate about and to be doing consistently in his role. He has a number of grants that he's acquired over the years to take learning resources into communities. And he's an expert at that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rick Wallace. Thank you for coming today, by the way.
You know, if you teach continuous lifelong learning, you have to, put your money where your mouth is. So definitely try to do that. And I will explain the title somewhere down the line here. I've been asked to go over, and let me say, the purpose of what I want to do today is to inform and grow scholarship and research in public health. I have several caveats. One would be that I'll go over this really fast. It's not supposed to be necessarily just a class where you develop skills, but hopefully some of the stuff you'll see and say, wow, I'd like more one-on-one time with that, or a small group, or I want this for my students or myself or whatever. I'd be glad to do that. Well, just starting off with, if you want to access our stuff, and you're going to be doing that a lot from places off campus, you need to go through our proxy server. And that is just this box that comes up when you try to come off campus, and the username and password for that is your email username and password. That throws people off right there from the start. They don't even know that basic, so they can't get access to our really rich resources that we have here on campus. Well, the big database for journal literature and health is PubMed, made by the National Library of Medicine, which you know is one of the National Institutes of Health. Wonderful group. And so I got a lot of things I want to point out about PubMed that you may not know. Well, first, I encourage you to use the MESH database. It's a controlled vocabulary that helps your precision and your recall in your search. By the way, the thing I have searched there called the Single Citation Matcher is a really good tool that if you have, like just today, I think, or it was yesterday, somebody wanted an article and they gave me the title of the journal, volume, and issue, but the page number was wrong, so I was able to find it. Well, if you go into MESH, you get a screen that looks like that. And after, we studied sensitivity and specificity, so precision and recall are kind of like that. When you search, you want to be precise. You don't want to get just everything, but you do want to have all recall. You do want to get all the pertinent articles on there, but you just want to get just that. You don't want to get all this other stuff as well, which is a problem with searching. So if you go into the MESH database, I just put neonatal abstinence syndrome. Seems like a big deal in Tennessee. Well, I circled several things. First, at the bottom left, you can see that you can focus on something, and that's called a MESH major topic. You can see all the subheadings that you can use in your search to make it more precise. So I chose prevention and control. And you can see that it has a little thing that says add to search filter. So you would go in, put in a term, and you would do either a mesh, major, or not, one of the subheadings, and then you would add it to your search builder. Then you might go into do another term and connect it with the first term and so on and so on. Eventually you're going to hit search PubMed. We're not searching PubMed yet. But below this in the record, you have this. So all these are entry terms for this. So if you weren't sure what the right term was, you could put any of these in and it would map it to the right term. But if you don't put in a term that mesh uses, it's just going to search it as a text word. And you're going to get a lot of stuff probably that you don't want, although it does have a brain and it does try to map it to the mesh term. By the way, PubMed goes back to the 1940s. It's indexed back to 1966 when they had one of the Public Health Acts started something called MEDLARS, which was the Medical Literature and Retrieval System. Matter of fact, Michael DeBakey, the famous heart surgeon, was a friend of NLM and helped push this through Congress in the early 60s. However, some journals go back even further than that, just for historical purposes. So this is the American Journal of Public Health. And you can see here's 1912. I think a few of these are by Dr. Wyckoff. And actually, a lot of these has the full text. So you can see that it says PubMed Central full text, which is another thing you may not know about. Across the world, there's this movement to have open access to scientific journals because, well, heck, for one reason, the government pays for a lot of the funding. And if you do something for NIH, you're supposed to, with proper embargoes, you're supposed to have that put in to PubMed Central. Now, some journals will do that for you. Some journals will let you do that, but it'll only be the Word version, not article that appears in the journal, because they consider that some added value that they've added to it. But PubMed Central actually has quite a number of full free text journals. That's what PubMed Central looks like. So actually, this journal article from the American Journal of Public Health is freely available. I just threw this in because it came up recently. I was asked by somebody in the research division of the Medical Library Association to send this letter to, I think they're the president of the American Public Health Association. And apparently the APHA has extended their embargo period from 2 years to 10 years from the American Journal of Public Health. And so that was what the protest is about. However, they're going to have it only embargoed in 2 years in PubMed Central. And they thought that was a bit confusing to people. So they're asking them to not embargo it in general, I guess, from their website. So I went ahead and sent a letter in for that. There's a lot of public health journals in PubMed. You can go to the front page of PubMed. It says Journals Index in PubMed. Basically, it's going to search the National Library of Medicine catalog called Locator. So some of the journals in there are not necessarily going to be indexed in Medline. But over on the left sidebar, I think it's cut off just the way the screen shows. There's something that says index only in Medline. So when I did that, there's 442 that are currently indexed in Medline that are journals that are considered public health journals. That's a lot of journals. Now, I had picky peer review. Well, first, a lot of students don't understand this, so it's important to teach students what a peer review journal is. Not all the citation databases that we have are only made up of peer-reviewed journals. CINAHL, some of the others have just trade journals, throwaway journals, etc., but not so PubMed. As a matter of fact, it is hard to get your journal into PubMed. Now, they index, I think it's 4,000, 6,000. It keeps expanding the number of health sciences journals around the world. And it's truly a around-the-world database, even though it's produced by the U.S. National Library of Medicine. For example, if you look at the language filters in PubMed, there's like 45 languages you can filter by, including unknown. I've never known what that was. I need to try that search, a language unknown. Esperanto, Azerbaijani, Scottish Gaelic, strange. But it's hard to get your journal through all the hoops, so it's included and indexed in PubMed if y'all were just starting off with a journal and wanted a peer-reviewed journal. So, okay, now I'm actually back. I jump around a lot to that mesh record. And I showed you all those entry terms. Well, here is how they sort of pack all these terms together. So they do them in this hierarchy. So neonatal abstinence syndrome, our term, is actually considered inferior to the broader term, infant newborn diseases, which is considered then inferior or less broad than congenital hereditary neonatal diseases and abnormalities, and so on up the ladder. So if your term was too narrow and you wanted to expand it, you could just go up a step. And you could go the reverse too if there is more terms under neonatal abstinence syndrome. So again, we're still in mesh. And so here we put our term in. We've added it to the search builder. And I decided to use prevention and control in mesh, not major mesh, because my instincts told me that there wouldn't be a lot on this anyway, and the major would make it too narrow. Now, there's definitely times when you want to search mesh, and there's definitely times when you want to search text words. So it's just an art to know how to combine those and when to use one, when to use other, or when to use both, actually. There's three major Boolean operators you'll use in your searches, and, or, and not. I've not added two terms here, so that's not coming into play, but you should know that if you use the AND operator, I think I have rivers and salinity, it's going to find articles that include both of those concepts. If you use the OR operator, fruits and vegetables, it'll find all the articles about fruits and all the articles about vegetables, as well as the articles about fruits and vegetables. The NOT operator I don't use too much, but it would find all the articles on fruit except the ones that also deal with apples. So that's what it means to not stuff as far as the Boolean operators that you use in searching in PubMed or any other database for that matter. So finally, we've done all this work and we've got into PubMed and we told it to search. And I'm sorry it's kind of a little bit cutting off the left sidebar, so I'll just have to tell you what it's saying over there. I can't see it on my screen either. Up there at the top it says neonatal abstinence syndrome prevention and control. That's our search. And there's several things on here I wanted to point out. For example, you can save a search. So what that does is it saves a search strategy, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So you want to save a strategy, and you want it to run itself every week, and then you get the results. So that's pretty cool if you're writing a dissertation or you're working on a research project, and you don't want to have to go in and search. This device, this database will do this for you. And several of the other databases will do that too. Now, here, you're seeing the summary view. I like to see the abstract view, and you're looking at 20 per page. I like to see 200 a page. There's a way to change that and keep it permanently changed. I will talk about that. The related citation links actually works pretty well. It runs some kind of algorithm that takes the terms in this citation that's right here, and it finds citations that are like that. And often you can find really good stuff like that. Well, just let me say that all this over here, well, you can see this better than I can. All these are limits over here, and these are very important. The first thing I tell people is to use the subject headings to have better precision and recall, to use the indexing system that the National Library of Medicine has worked so hard to put together to make this more intelligent database, but then also to use the limits. Because, you know, we're dealing with, I think, what is it? How many articles are indexed in PubMed now? Like 26 million or some kind of crazy number. It's almost as many as McDonald's hamburgers. But up here at the top, you can see that there is publication types, article types. And these are usually methodological concepts. And so, of all people in public health should use these. These are dates. In health, particularly in clinical medicine, where I do a lot of my work, you know, that's very important. You want stuff that's very timely, maybe just the last year. Then there's a lot of animal studies in the health literature, so if you don't want studies that are non-human. And then to show additional filters, you have to click on here. I don't know why they set it up this way. They used to have it work better, and they went backwards, but there's a language filter. So if you just want English articles, you can do that. Now, all the abstracts will be in English. And if you ever see a title of a citation and it's in square brackets, that means when you get the full article, it's not going to be in English. It's going to be, and it'll tell you what language it will be in. Every now and then I'll get some prop that'll order something, and one citation will be in Finnish, and one will be in German, and one will be in Norwegian, and one will be, and I'm thinking, I don't think they realize what I just said. So there's nothing more important than this right here, though, the search details. When you do a search, go there and look and see what the machine did. It may not do what you wanted it to do, and you can adjust it there and tweak it there. And that's just one of those valuable tools in PubMed is the search details. I told you down on that last sidebar there were some other filters that you had to pop up to make appear, and one of them was languages, and that's one that I use all the time, because usually I'm just dealing with stuff in the English language. Truly, PubMed is an international database. I mean, there are databases, and I've learned about a lot of them recently. As a matter of fact, I went to a systematic review training in the University of Pittsburgh back last April. It's 30 hours of just searching for systematic reviews, which you can imagine is like way boring. But there are actually like citation databases in India, and there's citation databases in South America. There's one in South America called Lilac. There's one that me and Dr. Mamito grieved over, and other people too that are systematic reviewers that I wish we had here. That's mainly a European database. It's called Embase, and we just can't afford it right now. But a lot of people that do systematic reviews, you're encouraged to search Embase, Cochrane, and search PubMed. And so we've had to kind of jury-rig things to make Embase searches possible. That's something I'd like to have on the wish list in the future. Now, this is just the list expanded of the article types on that left sidebar. These are just some. I couldn't get them all on one screen, just down to the C's of the article type. So this is something that we should really stress in public health. Now, here's the ones that I usually show on my left sidebar, just because of the type of searches I do. Clinical trials, guidelines, meta-analyses, practice guidelines, randomized control trials, systematic reviews. Now, there's others as well, but I feel like these have the most epidemiological reliability and validity. They're going to be the best evidence that I can get out of this database. Now, this is something that's taught in the evidence-based practice world all over the place. And I remember before I got into public health, I had this drilled into me. So when I started studying epidemiology, and I thought, wow, you know, the highest type of studies, the most valid type of studies are experimental studies, which are randomized controlled trials. Right up there at the top. Right below that, you have observational studies. And in observational studies, there's a certain hierarchy. Cohort studies are considered more valid than case control studies, and then individual case series, and so on. Then you have things like in vitro lab studies, animal research, et cetera, at the bottom. And then at the top, above all that, you have these clumping type studies, where you're putting together multiple cohort studies or multiple systematic reviews, things like meta-analyses, where you use statistical measures, or a systematic review. And I remember I was in one of my early classes, and we were supposed to do some kind of little report. And like I had me a RCT up there. One of my fellow classmates had an animal study. I'm going, nope, shouldn't do that. But, you know, be quiet, don't say anything. There is a lot of NLM, the National Library of Medicine. I've just sort of discovered this lately has a YouTube page, and so a lot of their resources and databases, they actually have some pretty good coverage on these short YouTube videos that are very helpful. Now, every citation that you pull up in ETSU databases is going to have this. It's get it at ETSU oblong, and it's going to connect to the full text. That's been one of the modern miracles, that we have all these digital collections of journals and that you can link right to them from databases. As a matter of fact, so many of the journals I use are in PubMed. Instead of going to our list of journals, sometimes I just go straight to PubMed and try to find it there. Sometimes this doesn't work. You can imagine the headache with this. We have subscriptions to all these different companies and all their different journals. And we keep up with all the free stuff, too, that's just freely available out there. Well, the links to all these resources are constantly changing. And apparently, from what I've heard, they don't tell people on our end. And so when that link goes bad, then everything goes bad. The only way we know is people tell us, hey, you know, it says that you have this and we don't. Well, there's this guy, he used to work for me. He's just a really, really bright guy. He now works at Sheridan, and he just finished his master's in library science. He also has a degree in computer science. His name's Travis Clayman. I just think the world of Travis. Well, anyway, he's the guy over this link resolver now. And so if you ever have anything that comes up and it doesn't connect and it's supposed to, at least it says it's supposed to, contact him, because he said actually that whole system is kind of messed up right now and he's trying to get it in decent order. But he's going to set up actually a form on the webpage too that you can just put in this little box if this didn't work, and hopefully it'll work. He'll get it fixed. Also there, notice the mesh terms and I didn't get them all because I just copied the top half of this page. I really wanted to show the link to the link resolver. But every single record will have maybe 14 mesh terms that these indexers have put to it. Sometimes you can just search in text words, find a really good article, and then go down and look and see what mesh terms they use and think, oh, well, this is the mesh term they use for that. And then repeat your search. I call that Perl searching. Okay, now here's back to one of the main screens of PubMed. This time I just put in health insurance. There are a whole set of these tags that you can search with, and you can go get those. I can email them to you. But here's one I use a lot of time is bracket TIAB, which is title abstract. Bracket TI is title, bracket AB is abstract, bracket MH is mesh term, and so on. Bracket TW is text word. And you sort of learn those if you do this a lot like I do. But also I've got the phrase health insurance in parentheses. No, anytime you search in PubMed in parentheses, it takes away sort of the brain power of the system. So if I just put health insurance, it would try to map that to some mesh term that talks about health insurance, if there is one. This way, it's just going to search it as a phrase and not map it to any mesh term. Excuse me. So I did health insurance, title abstract. I did some limits over there on the side. But notice up on the top right, there's something called My NCBI. And I'm going to go into that a bit. I think I'm already logged into it, so I had to log out to show you what I'm getting ready to show you. So you can see now where it says to sign into it. And I clicked on that, and you get this form here. I would encourage everybody to sign up for My NCBI. It's free. You're actually using server space on the National Library of Medicine server, and it can make your PubMed search easy. So all you do is register for an NCBI account. You see I have that circled with the red circle. And then you go to something like this, and you just fill it in, and bam, you're in. I think you can actually set up multiple accounts. So, for example, what does My NCBI do? Well, here's my NCBI. So you can start My Bibliography, so all the articles in PubMed that you're author of. It has a whole section that you can do that. You can actually save those to it. You can do save searches. I mentioned that before, and that actually is a search strategy. So, like, you can save these and actually run them on a regular basis. And then you can save collections. Collections isn't a search strategy. It's actually a group of citations. So I've searched and I found there's 200 citations, and I want to save the citations. I can save those in a collection. Also, you see where it says NCBI site preferences? You can go up there, and then you go to something like this. So, for example, I have these filters that show up when I'm logged into NCBI. And my filters are economics, meta-analysis, practice guideline, qualitative research, randomized control, systematic review, and cohort study. So, say I get a retrieval of 1,000, it'll show how many fit in each of those categories without me having to put the limits on the left sidebar in. And also, see where I've changed it instead of the normal summary and the normal 20 per page? I have it, for me, it shows up, the abstract is the normative, and 200 are shown per page and not 20, because I hate going through 20, 20, 20, 20. That just irritates me. So these are all the things you can do in My NCBI. So
Rick, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So is that the same thing as when a paper is linked to a grant? Don't you have to do it through My NCBI? Isn't
Julian wants to stop in on that?
Yeah, I think you might. It ends up in the PMC, actually. It ends up in the PMC ID. That's where you end up linking it. But it might be through NCBI. I think you have to fill that out periodically.
Yeah, I think that's right.
There's definitely a tie-in. And I think one of the features that you can do through My NCBI is if you've got NIH journals and you need to submit them or update them or all the various things that NIH wants you to do. That's one of the things. And we could actually do a whole session on that sometime too as well. Some bigger universities, their libraries will provide that services for folks. They'll help them do that. A lot of the journal publishers will do that now for authors, get it into their collections is something else I mentioned. That's just saving the citations themselves, and you can give those a name too. And this right here, I've got it covered up because I've got this, but I told you I have these filters now when I'm into My NCBI that show up automatically. So I just put in the word obesity, and you got this huge retrieval of 212,000. Out of those 212,000, for example, 5,000 are systematic reviews, 7,700 are RCTs and stuff. So that's just automatically showing up. And I can tweak those filters that show up. I can actually make up ones and have them. It only lets you do so many, but it's kind of a neat tool. Save searches, I mentioned that. So you can hit the Save Searches button, and then it gives you something like this. And so you can say, I want it weekly, and I want the abstract, and I want up to 200 items. And then following that search strategy, PubMed, a week from when you start this, will search automatically and send it to your email. Or you might want it monthly or whatever. So again, if you have some, and you could do 10 of these. So if you got some research study areas that you want to follow, the machine will just do that for you and keep you up to date. Clinical trials is another database, but I just thought you should know about it. Sometimes there's stuff that's not been published yet, and I put in, I think, neonatal abstinence syndrome on this. Now, a lot of these are drug trials, but not necessarily all of them. And you can actually see the research results of the researchers. They're required to put that in there. I don't think they really like doing that. They thought people would steal their thunder. But and you can put in like neonatal abstinence syndrome, Johnson City or Tennessee, and actually find clinical trials that are being conducted and get studies that you want to find in PubMed. I just finished a 2-week or 4-week or whatever it was. It was an online, I don't guess it was any amount of weeks, but it was a class on the genetics databases of NLM. And I thought, wow, this is just way over my pay grade. But they have some really good tools, and I'll just pass these on. There's actually a handout I can send. But for example, gene is, I mean, it's a genetics database, and it shows all the stuff that I don't understand, that probably people over here would. But yet it does have a lot of tie into the literatures. It has tie into the things like what are the gene functions, what are the diseases related to this gene, and so on. Genetics home reference is actually built for consumers. So if somebody has a sickle cell disorder or Duchenne syndrome or whatever, you can go in there and find lots of information. So if you're working in a public health outreach and you're dealing with this population, there's a lot of good information there. Genetic testing registry actually is very excellent. You can find, are there tests for this genetic disorder? What are they? And so on. They just, you know, the National Library of Medicine has a whole division called NCBI, you know, my NCBI, and they're sort of a genomics group. They're the ones that actually have done the human genome. And they've got all these databases in there that I don't have a clue about, but some of them are actually practical. MedGen is another one that's sort of a portal for these different resources and stuff. Since definitely this is part of public health, the National Library of Medicine has outstanding toxicology databases. And you can go to nlm.gov and see these lists. You can search them all at once, or you can search individual ones. ToxLine is just a literature database like PubMed. And you can tell ToxLine not to include PubMed results so you don't get a lot of overlap or don't get any overlap. DART, I believe, is a teratology database about how genetic abnormalities are caused by chemicals. LACMed is one that actually works on a smartphone, and I'll talk about some smartphone resources before I finish today. But it talks about, if you're working anything breastfeeding or lactation, how medications that women are taking affects the breastfed infant. So it's a really good tool. ChemID Plus, in this class I just finished, we also cover chemical databases by the National Library of Medicine. Again, I'm not a scientist by any stretch. This is just an excellent resource, though, about chemical structures, about chemical names, about chemicals in the literature. I know the environmental science part of the College of Public Health will really benefit from this tool. Household products. Again, if you're working on an outreach program in the community, this is a consumer health made for the consumer database that takes anything that you can imagine, any kind of personal grooming product, any kind of automotive product, any kind of house cleaning product, and it tells those MSD something or other sheets. It tells all the harmful effects of that, what to do if you breathed in that or consumed that. It's just a really great site. And I know we studied about this in class, one of the best laws ever produced. It's the EPA's database that's part of the National Library of Medicine for the emissions that are put out by corporations into the air or water. It shows you that. And so just a really good, easy-to-use site. Now, back within PubMed, there are some special and clinical query filters that people don't know about. That's you have to go to the very front page of PubMed, and down at the bottom where it has all this small text, it lists these special clinical queries. Well, the clinical queries filter actually is just an evidence-based medicine filter. So it's got one for treatment, one for diagnosis, one for prognosis. So it uses terms that they have decided and tested that bring out the articles that are the highest validity dealing with treatment of a specific clinical topic. And they've actually tested these filters. It's amazing. In Great Britain, these filters, they call them hedges over there, are a big deal. And they'll actually test a term, see what the results are. No, made the search worse, add this term, take away this term, and so on until they get it really, really where it's the best. But there's actually a comparative effectiveness research filter that you can search. There is one on health services research. There is a Healthy People 2020 filter that you can use. I'll have to read those off here. I can't see them on my screen. There's a health disparities filter that you can search. There's one on literacy. There's one on population health, by the way. That's something I'm very interested in. I do a PowerPoint for M3 medical students. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but got snowed out. They're required to spend 6 months in Sevierville and do a community medicine rotation. They've asked me to do a population health class, and they have to put a PowerPoint together. They have to do a health fair in a rural community, and they have to do a population health assessment of that community. Now, what I'd like for some time is some of the faculty here to look at my PowerPoint, see what they think about it, and say, well, I didn't know about that site, or you're leaving this one out, you ought to share this with them. But just thinking, too, if public health could get more involved in that program, because really community medicine, community is really the combination of public health and primary care. They're trying to have these students live in the community of Sevierville, go out and work with the public health department, go out and work in the prison, go out and, of course, work in clinics and hospitals and emergency rooms and so on. But it's to try to see them, for them as clinicians to see that healthcare is way beyond the individual patient. That's not going to cut it. I love this database. That's why I put hearts up there on top. PubMed Health. Anybody here ever heard of PubMed Health? They'll announce and they'll start these wonderful resources. They won't tell anybody. I'll just have to stumble on them. PubMed Health is a clinical effectiveness tool. Now, for the longest time, I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I couldn't figure out exactly what this whole thing was about clinical effectiveness. I thought, well, isn't that what it's all about anyway? Well, actually, the answer is no. So I've been reading these books about the healthcare system and that it's really got its problems, that we don't do a lot in clinical medicine based on evidence. This one book I've been reading, it says that clinicians get it right about half the time. It's kind of scary when you read about it. It says our system in another place is kind of like a Ferrari. We go 400 miles an hour, but we don't have any seatbelts. We don't have any airbags. So there's no focus in the healthcare system in the U.S. on quality or patient safety. So when they do these FDA trials and they have these articles published in JAMA New England Journal, they're sometimes about, or usually about a drug that treats X. Well, the thing is, there's already 75 drugs that treat X. And so why do we need 76? And usually they just say, well, this drug is better than placebo, right? Which is just a way of saying this drug is better than nothing. Because that's what placebo means. So these clinical effectiveness folks said, and they've had trouble getting people to get on board and to get money for it, they said, let's compare the 75 drugs and see which works the best. And they found out that they're doing these studies in just the very basic areas of medicine that people don't know what's the best. So one way we know that we try to do that is through systematic reviews. So PubMed Health basically searches systematic reviews from Cochrane, from other sites, from AHRQ, and so on. And so here's what it looks like. I put in smoking cessation. So I got 538, and most of these, again, are systematic reviews. So the first one's from DARE, which is a Cochrane database. So is the second and the third and the fourth. I can actually narrow it down to systematic reviews that are found in PubMed. Now, some of these are not found in PubMed in the 538. And then the medical encyclopedia actually is a really good consumer health part of this website, this database, that tells the consumer what works. And I should have left a screenshot of that, but it's pretty cool. So I love PubMed Health. So I use PubMed Health. I've been asked to be involved with the evidence assessment team for the Tennessee Department of Health. I've got to know Dr. Reagan, who's the Chief Medical Officer for the Department of Health. I've started a contract to provide article services for the Department of Health, and I'm working on a grant with this lady. I just met at a conference that has gone around to state departments of health at the state office and provided databases for about 2 or 3 years that are e-journals, e-books, and so on. And she says she's trying to get it into Tennessee, and I hope that will happen. But I told them, I said, look, why don't you guys work for the colleges of public health across the state, get students to do systematic reviews for you, and address what are the major health problems in Tennessee. And then you'd have the evidence of what's the most effective. So, should we even start doing anything until we know that? So anyway, I want to go over some other databases. One thing about public health is that it's so comprehensive as far as the different disciplines academically that you possibly might have to deal with. CINAHL is the Accumulated Index of Nursing and Allied Health Literature. There's a large overlap between the records in CINAHL and PubMed, but there's certainly different ones in each set. It's actually produced not by the government, but by Glendale Adventist Hospital. It doesn't have near the number of records that PubMed has, but it has several million. You can use headings, which are very much like mesh headings, and it also has search options, which are the same as limits. It has a search history, so if you put individual searches into CINAHL, then you can go and combine those, so on. A lot of the records that you'll get in CINAHL actually has the full text already attached, but it'll still have the Get It at ETSU logo, because you can check that too. Even if it doesn't have it attached, it still might be there. So certainly be familiar with searching CINAHL. PsycInfo, there's certainly a psychological abstract aspect to behavioral health. And so you can see again that PsycInfo looks a lot like CINAHL. That's because they're both vended or sold or through EBSCO. And so you'll see that the databases, citation databases that we have outside of PubMed, some will be from ProQuest, some will be from EBSCO, some will be from other vendors. And the principles of all these are the same. Use their subject headings if possible. Some of these you do have to limit to peer-reviewed articles. Use their limits. Once you understand these basic principles of searching, you can figure out pretty much all of these, and particularly the ones that use the same interface, like PsycInfo and CINAHL. Now they don't. Yeah.
Quick question. Can you log into EBSCO host, and then that would automatically search both PsycInfo and CINAHL?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
So there's sort of a meta site that pulls all of the ones that are vended by that one. Okay.
You can, and you lose the individual thesauri because they're not the same thesaurus and so on. So the term used for something in PsycInfo will be different from the term in CINAHL and so on. Now, I'll mention this later, but I'll just go ahead and mention it now. The big fad right now is these one search engines. We have the EBSCO one here at ETSU. I never use it. It might be good for undergraduate students that you work with, but it supposedly searches everything. And it just has massive, massive outputs. Now, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's okay. We use a catalog now called Millennium, and we're replacing that. This is through the shared library. And the new one's going to be called Alma. It's going to be rolled out here in the next few months and stuff. And it has its own one search capability. It actually has its own link resolver, that thing I told you about that connects the citations to the full text, but that shouldn't be something that affects you. So I don't like these that just search everything. But again, if I'm an undergraduate, don't know any of these, and I'm just trying to write a paper, maybe they're helpful. ABI Inform, yes, Dr. Wallace.
I just wanted to mention you had PsycInfo. I always start with Psych articles first before
Yes.
I do info because all the PDFs are available.
Okay.
If you find it on Psych, they overlap.
Yeah.
If you find it on Psych article, the PDF's right there for you. And then if I can't find it there, then I go to PsycInfo.
They're both APA, right?
They're both APA.
Right, okay.
So one is all the APA journals, and that's why the PDF is immediately available.
Okay. So that's kind of like CINAHL full text. You get
It's
the full
very
text
similar to
there.
PsycInfo. They look identical except for that one.
Primarily just added the full text. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. ABI Inform is business, so definitely, gosh, I mean, knowledge of business aspect of public health. It may be the main aspect of what we're dealing with this day and time. But see, it has the thesaurus, and you can limit to peer review. And always use these advanced when it says advanced. I mean, advanced is easy, and non-advanced is hard, so don't let that throw you. LexisNexis searches newspapers and legal documents. So here, if I go and want to search state statutes and regulations, I'm on the Tennessee Public Health Association Legislative Committee. I'm not sure how I got on that, but I am, and it's really fascinating. We had a meeting yesterday by phone, and it was Bill Dobbins is our lobbyist in Nashville. And, of course, we supported Insure Tennessee. That went really well. But actually, like some of the things that we're talking about that our bills are up, there's like 2 or 3 bills that are trying to soften motorcycle helmet laws. Desperately, these people in Nashville are trying to make it so people can go out and have massive brain trauma. I'm not sure what that's all about. And several others, but it's just really fascinating. And so, if they mentioned Senate Bill so-and-so or House Bill so-and-so, well, you could actually look those up through LexisNexis. As well as the Tennessee webpage. Sociological abstracts, certainly a sociological abstract to public health. You can see a lot of interfaces look the same because they're from the same vendor. All of this, and nobody knows about it, it's called PH Partners. It's called Partners in Information Access for the Public Health Workforce. It's basically this massive portal that has links to everything. I challenge you to go through this and just find what you can find in here and report back to the group of what you found. But it's got those health topic pages. I kind of ignore that, and it's got the current stuff in the middle, and probably that's pretty interesting. But where I've got circled and below that are the interesting stuff. So health promotion and health education, literature and guidelines, data tools and statistics. By the way, here are the partners that put this together. It's put together by the National Library of Medicine, but they partnered with ARC, APHA, ASPPH, ASTHO, CDC, HRSA, MLA, which is the Medical Library Association, and National Agricultural Library, NACHO, NALBOR, NLM, National Library of Medicine, the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, the Public Health Foundation, and the Society for Public Health Education. So they got all the big players in here. So here's just the literature and guidelines. Now, if we were to scroll down, this goes down from here to the bottom of the sea. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Some of these links are really good. So, for example, health evidence. I don't know if I found this through here. There's a link to it here. This is a great site. It's a Canadian systematic review type site. And, boy, the Canadians and the Brits, you know, they're way ahead of us in finding best evidence. And I just really like this. It's out of McMaster's, and they do nothing but just really good stuff. This is this one I found fooling around for this presentation. It's out of the UK. It's called DOFR, Database of Promoting Health Effectiveness Reviews. But I bet it's a really good source, and I found these off of PH Partners. The Cochrane database of systematic reviews is a high holy database of best evidence. It's a systematic reviews on clinical topics. There's probably about 6,000 Cochrane systematic reviews. It's a very, very long process to put a Cochrane systematic review together. I've worked with systematic reviews with Dr. Mahmoudou. We're going to start on another one. And there's some public health students that are working with Dr. Pack that I just started working on a systematic review from. It's an exciting area. DARE is another Cochrane database, whereas Cochrane Systematic Review database is just on therapy, so it's very narrow, systematic reviews, and it's only on RCTs, so there are not any systematic reviews on cohort studies or so on. DARE covers other topics in therapy, so it's much broader, and we can see a lot of the hits that we had in PubMed Health are from DARE. And then Central is just a repository of validated RCTs. There's probably over 1 million of these, but it's still a good database to search. Not necessarily all these will be in PubMed. And so these Cochrane people have found all these RCTs, and they've sort of validated them for quality, and they're in Cochrane Central. Let me say, too, that Cochrane has a resource called Prospero, and it's a prospective register of systematic reviews. So if you're thinking about doing a systematic review, why not register it here? And to do several things. First, if somebody else was doing one exactly like yours and they started a year ago, you could say, well, maybe I shouldn't do this because somebody's already beat to the punch. Also, you can go into Prospero because systematic reviews is something that's still very confusing to me. And if you look at all the Cochrane protocols for how they want you to do them, it's just a lot of involvement. Well, you could go in here and see how other people set up their protocols. And if you do a systematic review, you really need a protocol. And you can say, oh, that's what they mean by this. So it's just very helpful. I'm going to go through this really fast, but we used to have RefWorks, and Sherry decided they needed to save money. I think they've been kind of hurt financially. And also, there's all these open access reference management programs, Zotero, Mendeley, and others, and they decided to go with that. Now, we actually have an account at EndNotes over on the college, but it's not all that great, to tell you the truth. It's this web-based EndNotes. I like Mendeley a lot. Let me just show you a bunch of stuff real quick. You go to Mendeley.com. You can download it for free. It kind of looks like this. It has this social media stuff set up, so I can set up a group on evidence-based searching or something and put articles in it, and people can join it and so on. This is what a basic Mendeley library looks like. You can see the citations that I've saved in it. It's a reference management program to save citations and turn them into bibliographies and internal text. You can add documents to it. You can create folders. You can actually type in citations manually. With Mendeley, you get 2 gigabytes. RefWorks, I think, gave a little bit more. Dr. Beth Bailey, y'all may know her. She's just a super person, does all this great work. She does a lot of NAS and other things, pregnant smokers and so on. She had to continue to pay for her RefWorks account because she had so many full-text articles attached to her reference manager. She had about 12 gigabytes of information. So no matter who you go with, if you have that kind of PDFs attached to your references, you're going to have to pay. It has a web importer, so this little thing here that says Save to Mendeley, you can just drag that up to your toolbar, and then you can go into something like PubMed, and you have this up on the toolbar that says Save to Mendeley, and then you can just do a PubMed search and click beside all the abstracts, and it'll take them right into Mendeley. I just think that's cool, and it'll work with any database, not just PubMed. So see this.
So hold on a second. So if you got Mendeley, if you put that bar on top, and you're in Mendeley, I'm sorry, you're PubMed, or you're in Sign All, or you're in PsycInfo, that bar shows up at all of them.
Yeah.
And it's just like a Google Chrome bar.
Yeah. Just up there at the top like a Google Chrome bar.
Or is it because we're going through the library here?
No, it's just something totally independent. All of Mendeley is totally independent of the library. It's just a free open access software.
Right, cool.
It's owned by Elsevier, so it's reliable. I'm sure they'll start charging for it one day. But anyway, so
Actually get us hooked.
Yeah, this would show up anywhere right here. This little thing here. These are the ones I clicked in PubMed, and it'll take them right into my Mendeley folder. Now, what you need to do for Mendeley, you need to sign up for a web version, and you also need to download the desktop version, and you need to sync those, and I'll show you that in a second. So like the ones I just did in PubMed are now in this Mendeley folder, just like that. And that was a lot easier than RefWorks or any other. You can move them around, make up new folders, and call the folders different names. You can just make a bibliography like you can with any other reference manager. You can just make it inside of Mendeley and copy and paste it. It's one way to do it. You can do the in-text citations as well. You have all the different citation formats that you have in the other reference manager, so you can change it from journal type to AMA to APA to whatever. But you do want to download the desktop version as well. It's sort of your anchor. And you just go to the screen, download Mendeley Desktop. It's really easy. And you can sync the two so that they are showing the same thing. There's a MS Word plugin like there was for RefWorks and other programs, so that when you're typing a paper and you want to put an in-text citation, that you can pop them in wherever you want. Me and Dr. Mahmood were working on this a little bit before we had a big grant due in January, and we're going to pick back up on this. And some of this I'm learning too myself because it's fairly new. That's just about how to install the Microsoft Word program. And there's a lot of good video tutorials. That's kind of how I learned to use Mendeley.
So after you install it, can you do cite while you write?
That's what basically it is.
That's what it is. So it's the same thing.
They call it.
I am so tired of EndNote, y'all. I mean, I really am.
Yeah.
Give it out.
It doesn't work with me.
I like that.
Well, I've been an EndNote user for 15 to 20 years. But I'm telling you, it is buggy at this point with my Mac. And I'm over. I think I'm going to go with this.
I've used both, and I find the Mendeley works great if you don't have too many. I have like 700 PDFs.
Oh, yeah,
Then
well,
the
PDFs,
EndNote is a lot better for that because it's cheaper, actually, because the amount you'd have to pay for the Mendeley for how many gigabytes.
But you have to pay once you get so high. Either
Once you get so
yeah.
high.
Yeah.
I think I know. I use EndNote Mac. That's what I use. It works fine.
It's buggy. Maybe it's my Mac. Is that my, okay.
Maybe it's how you
No,
use it, bro.
So it could be that. It's probably that. Can you import all your EndNote libraries into Mendeley?
Yeah, you can import all the,
Right.
They sent out a bunch of messages we did do for RefWorks. We said, look, you need to get these off if you're using RefWorks because they're going to pull the plug on it December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
I've not checked to see if they've actually done it. I mean, we're not paying for it anymore, and surely they've worked with us if somebody forgot to do that. But we have a bunch of ebooks. It's a new thing, and a lot of these are clinical medicine. Here's the various titles of them, but not necessarily. Like I was going through one we have called R2, and it has infectious disease epidemiology. And I said, Dr. Quinn, I said, isn't this the textbook that we use for class? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, okay, tell the students they can just pay me because here it is, And it's just some book that, we've got on one of our lists.
You're kidding.
All these other, like, epi books are here, and I just expanded it to public community health, and that's just showing, I think there's like 20 of them that are here, and some of these might be really good. So, and there's this thing that Shared has called EBSCO ebooks, and we've actually got Travis to make a filter on it so it just searches the clinical ones. And there's a lot of different stuff in there. The only problem with EBSCO ebooks, it also searches novels and children's books and so on.
Where are you finding this ebook thing? That's straight through medicine, Quillen College of Medicine Library?
Yeah, if you go to our library, just on the very front page, our webpage,
Okay.
there's something in one of the little lists that says ebooks.
Okay.
And then it has this little thing like Access Medicine, it's really big Bibles of in medicine,
Right.
Harrison's, Access Pharmacy, of course, that's McGraw-Hill, we got that pharmacy school, but really good titles. Clinical Key has over 1,000 full text books. It's an Elsevier product. The EBSCO ebooks has everything, this strange stuff. R2, we're just in. Stat Rep actually downloads to a smartphone. You have the books there, and the really good titles there. ICD-10 codes, drug databases, and so on. I'm trying to just kind of blow your mind. Like, there's just all kinds of really good stuff out there you probably don't know about, and I have trouble keeping up with.
I mean, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Is there any way to link that ebooks site against the books that professors are requiring of students, and then just run that list, and then see if there's not a I don't know what how our bookstore would feel about that.
Well, I mean, if you had to give us a list, we could probably. I know we did that for medicine one year just to show them they weren't using these resources, and we found like for M1s and M2s, we found like about 6 or 8 books they were buying. Wow. We said, look, here are these books. So I don't think we realized we had them, but if you gave us a list, we could do it and check against to see which out of those that might be in that list. But I know that one, that infectious disease epi books in there. And so, I mean, what do students always complain about? Oh, about these textbooks.
And I guess they keep them updated with the new editions?
They do, except for that R2 one. That one you have to watch. I think it's a different model. You actually purchase it, so you own it. These others, like Access Medicine and stuff, you just pay a yearly fee. And so they're duty bound to make sure that it's the latest issue. When it's not, we fuss at them and that changes. So I just wanted you to know this is maybe not something you think about in public health, but yet I just think they're great. We have several point-of-care tools. Point-of-care tools are based on evidence-based practice. That they're one of these databases that you can go in and you may be seeing a patient, and you just have 5 minutes to find information. So they found all the high-level evidence, the systematic reviews, the RCTs, and they've had these people that are really skilled in that. One guy that's really good has this program called Essentials Evidence Plus. His name's Marky Bell. He's actually an MD, but he actually teaches at the Public Health School at the University of Georgia. And so real quickly, you can find this best evidence. Well, every now and then in our public health classes, we had to do like a report on a disease. And people would ask me, and I'd say, hey, go to Dynamed. I said, they've got the best evidence summarized instead of reading an individual article on some disease and so on. But we have the ones that we have Dynamed, we have UpToDate, we have Essentials Evidence Plus. Those are the major ones of those that we have. And there's links to our website, and Dynamed will download to a smartphone. Look, use Medline Plus. It's a consumer health site for the National Library of Medicine. We use it when we go out. We've become involved in several of the RAM events. We got involved with the one at WISE last summer, and we did 400 searches for them for patients on consumer health topics. This is the best consumer health site there is. So if you're doing community health, all the students should know about Medline Plus. You can order free promotional materials for it as well. The National Guideline Clearinghouse is put out, I think, by HRQ. It just searches guidelines around the world. So if you're looking for higher levels of evidence, you can put in a topic and search NGC. We actually have the Web of Science. I don't use it a lot, but they have all the PubMed records in there and some other records. There is a link to a web-based EndNote that, like I said, I'd rather use Mendeley. I didn't know we had it. Some professor told me that was kind of embarrassing. The journal citation reports are done by this group, but we don't have access to them. It tells the impact factors of the journals. That's kind of important in academics in some people's mind. But it will tell, it is a citation database. So I can put in this guy here, Frieden T, or I think I just put in folks from our school. And I came up with this article. I think it's Dr. Martin Stutz and Dr. Pack and Dr. Wyckoff. Well, anyway, so here's the article, just like maybe you've seen in PubMed. But the difference is this database here shows how many times it was cited. And so it's which is pretty cool, actually, which is kind of a big deal in academics. I don't know.
It was both us. Lisa.
Yeah. Moral of the story: you better cite your college. All right? But that's a way to check that. And I think we only have that back to about 2000 or so. But every now and then we'd get requests from academics folks to say, run a citation analysis on me or something. So here actually is the two citations here. So ERIC is the education database, which again has a big overlap with public health. It's a ProQuest database. Few smartphone things. QXMD is a smartphone app. I've got it on mine. It's not necessarily clinical medicine. QXMD reads all these feeds from journals that come into the abstracts. Then you can set it up to customize it. So if you wanted American Journal of Public Health or whatever, I think I've got that actually. You can have it come in on your smartphone as the abstracts. In journals that we have the full text access to, there's a way to link it up. You can actually read the full text of journal articles from your favorite journals on your smartphone or on your iPad and have them continuously coming in. So that's just a really good tool. The CDC has a lot of smartphone apps. One of the big things that we do is we help students, faculty, and staff load stuff on smartphones. A lot of them are clinical databases, but these are just a few, but they have a ton of stuff. Some are just kind of weird to me. But these are three I have on my device. Again, I mentioned Dynamed. It's a point-of-care tool. So here I've searched neonatal opioid withdrawal and looked at the epidemiology of it under Dynamed. This is a smartphone application here, and that's what it looks like on the smartphone. We do have an online catalog. I mentioned earlier it's going to be replaced by Alma here in the next few months, and hopefully that'll be a lot better than what we have now. And we'll have a one search tool I mentioned earlier. Okay. What's this whole Info Master Yoda thing? Well, I went to an EVM class at UVA back 10 or so years ago, and their thing was info mastery. And here's what I understand as info mastery. And my goal has always been for every public health, every health science student at ETSU, every faculty, every staff even, to be info masters. And I think that means to me you should be aware of the information tools and keep current with them. You should have the basic skills and know how to use these tools. That you should be motivated to be a lifelong learner, that you want to continuously grow in your knowledge. You should be a best evidence practitioner. You should know what that means and how to apply it. And you should know how epidemiology applies to information, the little pyramid. We, of all people, should know that in public health. Every health science student and faculty should be an info master. And what is a YODA? Well, a YODA is someone who is your own data analyzer. A YODA. So instead of having to rely on what somebody else says down the hall, you have the tools to go in and search the evidence, and you can find the best evidence. Because maybe you won't be working in a rich environment of an academic university. You'll be out there and whatever. And so we want all of our students to become Yodas and make stuff fly around in the air and so on. Thank you. I'm always available for help. Again, I'm trying to get involved with this Tennessee Department of Health assessment team, get them a grant to get some resources. And we actually have a couple contracts with a few other regions. South Central is one that we have a library contract with. And I told you about the sort of the public health class I'm working with the medical students. And that's it. Thanks.
Yes. That's a remarkable presentation, Rick. Thank you. My mind is blown, and I've been doing this a long time, and I know a little bit about what's going on out there. Thank you so much. Okay, will you make your slides available?
I will. I will.
Any questions, folks? Any questions for if so? Surely there's a question or two.
And I will. I'll work with your class. I'll work with your staff. I'll work with you. Trying to help you. So I really feel that this has a real value in public health, and I feel like a lot of what I do actually is public health, using information to have better outcomes, whether it be clinicians are better at their job or patients and community people are healthier or whatever.
So I would encourage you, to take Rick up on his offer, because not only is he a wonderful resource, but he can also be a very valuable co-investigator and mentor in certain areas. And those are the kind, again, of collaborations that we need to leverage more, as we grow research in the college.
So, Rick, how have you interfaced with the QEP team? Because that's what our QEP theme here in Top Forum is about being able to synthesize and use information toward new application and answering new questions.
Right.
So how do you interface with them? Because that's exactly what this is. And you training people how to use it is sort of an approach toward getting our students better informed about using those type of resources.
The QEP team, I'm not familiar with that. Is that the project that you're working on? Or?
Yeah, no, we need to probably integrate or probably connect you up with those folks, because this type of thing, what you're doing and what you're promoting is something that they should be knowledgeable about, because it's something that SACS requires.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, an initiative on the academic side of campus to promote certain learning outcomes among students, particularly undergraduate students, in part to comply with SACS and also for continuous improvement purposes.
Yep.
I would see how, I guess, on the medical health science side, since it's more professional graduate students, I can see how Rick might not have heard about it.
Yeah. It's just it strikes me that they more than you hearing about them, they need to hear about you. There's a bridge that needs to be built between you.
Absolutely. For me, like every health student at least here ought to have to go through this little OSCE type thing. Go to this little cubicle and they get this scenario thrown at them, and they have to, search certain things and come out the other end, and it has to be of a certain quality before we send them out into the big wide world.
So many times I've seen people reinvent the wheel, or attempt to reinvent the wheel, but they reinvent a wheel that looks like a triangle, and it's not any good, and it's so frustrating to see this happen over and over in public health practice. Local Rotary designs their own behavioral intervention for substance abuse for teens. Give me a break. There's 300 effective prevention programs for teens.
Yeah, and that's something that we try to preach, to students.
Yeah.
Again, when they're working on projects, check out what's out there.
Yeah.
And in 2015, there's no need to reinvent the wheel on almost anything.
That's right.
There's so much data and knowledge out there. It's just retrieving it and analyzing it, as Rick was saying.
And then asking a more sophisticated question.
Well, but they're doing class projects. What I mean, a program plan, for example.
That's right.
And they propose, okay, we're going to do this project in order to achieve this outcome. Well, what's the evidence? Has this been found effective? Have you went to the community guide to see if it's effective? Have you went to the clinical guide to see if it's effective? And maybe not in your population, but in a similar population.
That's right.
But it's hard to get those, I guess, skills ingrained, I guess, especially with students.
I wonder why, though, because it's so much easier now than it ever has been. We can actually access all this from our homes, and we can access full text articles. I noticed my wife's she's a doc student now, and she was I was kind of taking her through how to access full text articles. It is so easy to access them from our
I think
houses.
what we're saying, particularly with students, is this increased reliance on Google, for example, and on just you go search the web straight rather than searching the scientific databases.
Right.
And you'll find something there, you'll find the good, the bad, and the ugly there. And then somehow you start adapting it for your classwork. It may seem interesting, that one idea or that one intervention, but there may be a whole ton of evidence against it, but they don't, I guess, take the time to look for that. I don't know if others, if my colleagues have a similar feeling about that. But
I think that's a good point.
You know, I've had this passion to get some kind of statewide access for clinical staff. I've worked on 3 PDA grants where we pushed out about 350 PDAs to rural clinicians with smartphone apps on them. Right now, I'm offering literature free to any hospital under a certain size. Not be a big update. I see that's a really public health issue.
I mean, I have an idea for you, Rick, because I think part of the problem here is there's so much. We're awash in information and even awash in databases, and I not just students, but I see faculty and other people that just don't know where to turn first. We need an app to find that. You know, what would be really nice is an app that I went in and said, I'm trying to do this, this, and this, and it said, here are the databases you should look for. Look for that information in. Somebody needs to do that so that we can better know. Because right now, I have certain places. I go to PubMed, I go to Psych Articles, a few other places because they consistently can get my information. I don't have to start to learn all these other databases. If I had that app, I might find 3 other places that are really great sources of information. So develop that app. I'll get it. I'll download it.
You know, everything that I shared today, you don't have to use every time. You know, like every tool for every job and stuff.
Sure,
like
but
that.
that's what I'm saying. An app that tells you which tool is the right one for that particular job that I'm working with. Perfect. You know.
One thing that's so sad, I'm telling you, the students that leave here in the College of Medicine, they're pathetic. I mean, they are. Their skills are bad. They just are.
Well, thank you so much again. Any other comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I think I can testify that Rick is very useful resource. So, yeah, if you need any help, you just help me.